3.4 million cats in shelters, 1.4 million cats being euthanized. That's in 1 year. So this is going to help us get those numbers down so that we can make a difference for these cats. So let's talk a little bit about what are the things that you can do. So I've broken down into the top 3 tips that you can do to help your cats thrive and live a long and vibrant life. So this can start from kitten, middle age, senior, whenever you get your cat. These are things that you can start, but we're going to be focusing on kittens. 3.4 million cats enter shelters every year. 1.4 million cats are euthanized in shelters every year. What does this have to do with kittens? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm Dr. Katie Woodley, the natural pet doctor. This is our weekly coffee talk with the doc, and we're diving deep into kittens because kittens are cute, they're fluffy, but also too many are going back to shelters either as a kitten because we weren't able to give them exactly what they needed. They didn't fit into the family. And maybe they developed diseases or they got older, they became hard to take care of. So we need to change the cycle of cats going to shelters. So let's start with a little story. So recently we lost Finn, our German Shepherd. We've had cats before him. And I've always loved cats. I just love their personalities. And maybe you feel the same way. Like we waited a little bit because Finn was older. He had some health issues and we didn't want to stress him out by bringing in new cats and things like that. So we waited. And so when he passed, I thought, I'm not going to get another cat or a dog. I'm going to take a break from pets. Well, that didn't last very long. And I needed that energy. I needed that vibrancy that pets bring into the house. And so I went to the shelter knowing that I was going to come home with a cat. And I looked at 2 senior cats, and I have a near and dear place in my heart for senior pets. And I found these 2 that they came from the same house. And I knew they were mine. Like I knew I had to help them. They came from a house. They had been moved many times from different houses, house to house. The dogs had harassed them. The cats, they were older, 9 and 11. One of those cats, he had a heart condition. He had kidney disease. He had severe osteoarthritis, so pain. And I knew that I probably didn't have a lot of time with him. But I knew that he would pass away in the shelter, and I wasn't okay with that. No one was looking at them. They were on a special prescription food, and they were older, and no one was looking at them. Not one single person had looked at these 2 cats. And I said, I don't need to stay here very long. Let's just get the carriers, put them in, and let's go. But I thought to myself, how many other people feel this way or feel overwhelmed and feel like I can't have this cat in my house. I have to take them to the rescue. And why? Why is that? And I feel like it comes down to just making sure that we get them off to the right start, starting from when they're kittens, or even start a lot of these principles and facts and tips and tricks we're going to talk about can be applied to senior cats, can be applied to a middle-aged cat. So bringing them home, what are the things that you can do? These are the foundations for optimizing their health, which lowers vet bills, which can be a stress on people, especially right now. And so Taz ended up passing away about 2 months after we got him, which was really sad. His little heart we couldn't do much for him. We did medications, we did herbs, and he was just too advanced. But I felt good knowing he had a safe home. He had the love, he had the peace and quiet to spend the last part of his life in. And so we actually adopted a new kitten. So this is very applicable because the things I'm telling you, I've actually gone through and done with this kitten, Moki, and he's a special needs kitten. He has cerebellar hypoplasia. So you'll probably see him coming in and out of the videos and other things that I do. and he tends to have intention tremor. So he sits there like this, and he's not in pain, but his coordination is off because his cerebellum didn't develop. And so he is not a confident cat. He has done a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, and I'll tell you the tips that I used to help him adjust to a new environment, to an older senior cat, so Kiwi cat, who's not the most open and friendly with him. And there's a lot that we can do. So this is why we need to talk about those numbers. 3.4 million cats in shelters, 1.4 million cats being euthanized. That's in 1 year. So this is going to help us get those numbers down so that we can make a difference for these cats. So let's talk a little bit about what are the things that you can do. So I've broken down into the top 3 tips that you can do to help your cats thrive and live a long and vibrant life. So this can start from kitten, middle age, senior, whenever you get your cat. These are things that you can start, but we're going to be focusing on kittens. So let's talk about, you've got this kitten, you're coming home. What is the first step? You need to create a safe environment for these cats. You need to have a room set up with litter trays, with a water bowl, food bowl, diffusing pheromones. So Feel Away is a really common one. So Feel Away, and this is actually the spray version, so you can spray this on the towels. I spray this in the cat carrier before I bring them home, the towel that goes over the carrier. So this is a pheromone, and what it is, it's a calming pheromone. So when cats rub up against furniture, they are releasing this pheromone that helps calm them down, and it works really well for a lot of cats. Not every cat will respond to this, but it's really safe. And they have plug-in versions. So it's like a Glade plug-in, which I never recommend, but it's the safe version because it's releasing a pheromone. So this is great, especially if you have a cat where you have an older cat and you're bringing in a new kitten and you're not sure how it's going to go. Plugging in these Feel Away plugins throughout the house or where they're going to spend most of their time is really helpful. So with Moki, what we did is we had a bedroom set aside. So Kiwi couldn't go in there. He couldn't leave. So he had everything he needed. He had hiding places. He had scratching posts. He had a litter tray. He had his food. He had his water bowl. We had a Feel Away plug-in in there. And what he did for the first entire week was hid under the bed. I didn't touch him once. I couldn't. And so if you can have a room, this is what I would change. I would have a room probably similar to like my office behind me, where there's not a place where he can go where I can't necessarily get to without rearranging all the furniture. And so, yes, a bed's fine, but as long as you can get to them, it can be a little bit difficult. So if he got sick, I would need to get to him. So that would be my one thing that I'd probably change the room that he's in and maybe make like the closet behind me where a bed, a hiding place is, and then I could easily get to him and make sure he's okay. Because it took a week before he came out. I would go and I would sit in the room and let him get used to me. And I would throw little treats to him, treats that I will not feed long-term, but really tasty treats. So I think it was like the Friskies Temptations, not a healthy treat at all, but it's like junk food. So I wanted him to get used to me and feel good with me coming there. Tried little bits of like liver, some of the Ziwi stuff, but he loved the Temptations. That's what he came with from the foster family. So getting them used to you in this room, the safe room, the cats can smell each other under the door. So you can also bring blankets or the towels or things that they're laying on to the other cat and let them sniff it. So that's a great way to introduce the smell and the scent to the other cat. And then usually after about a week, that's when we want to start introducing those kitties to one another. And that's a really slow introduction. Sometimes they take to each other really quickly, really easily. Ours did not. There's a lot of hissing and things like that. So we had to do a gradual introduction between Moki and Kiwi so that there, wasn't any fights. We had to be careful. And I mean, there's still moments where Kiwi's not impressed with the little kitten trying to play with her. So those are all things though that we started off with to make sure that they were doing okay. Other ways that you can help reduce anxiety. So remember, this is a brand new environment. A lot of times these kittens are coming from shelters or rescues, or maybe they're getting them from another home. They're away from their litter mates. They're away from their mom, and they're super stressed. and they're like, I don't know what's going on. They might be coming into a home where there's dogs too, and they've never seen a dog before. So that's where gradual introduction, making sure the dog doesn't see them as prey. Some dogs have real high prey drive. So you need to be there when you introduce your cats to them. The other thing that I tend to use a lot of is essential oils. So Young Living's Stress Away, you can use this in a diffuser. So water diffuser, 1 drop in the water diffuser, diffuse it in an open room typically. So I would test this out beforehand. You've got to be careful if you have your kitten in a closed room, you have a young cat, you want to just be careful. So a way that I would test it first is I would take a drop, put it on my hand, add some coconut oil, rub my hands together, and then just sit with them. And as he gets used to me, he's smelling it. Their sense of smell is really, really strong. So you're looking for signs of salivation. They're closing their eyes. They're squinting. They're like bothered by it, sneezing, vomiting, lethargy, really tired. If you're seeing any of those signs, okay, maybe that's too strong for them at this time. We can also use lavender essential oil and chamomile. So starting with just 1 drop, big dilution. And if you feel like they do really well with it and they're enjoying it and they seem more relaxed, that's where you can introduce like a diffuser. A lot of times I'll introduce that water diffuser into the room when I keep the door open. So once the 2 cats or the dog and the cat are introduced, or we're letting the cat roam around the house now, that's when I'll introduce like a water diffuser if I am using essential oils, keeping in mind we want to use good brands like Young Living. So that's a big thing. We need safe zone for these kittens. Otherwise, they're going to be stressed, and stress releases cortisol, can create inflammation. We can see who's ever had a kitten with an upper respiratory infection. So they can get herpes virus, they can get runny eyes, they're sneezing, and that's related to stress. So that's why it's so important to keep their stress levels to a minimum in a safe, quiet place as they're adjusting to their new environment and getting used to you, getting used to your family, and getting used to everyone that's there. So that's tip number 1. The other foundation that we talk a lot about is nutrition. So nutrition is key. And a lot of times from the rescue, they're coming with a bag of food that they've been on. And it just depends on what the shelter is donated, right? So it may be a great quality food, it may be a lower quality food, and they use what they get. So, and they have to, so that they can feed all the cats, the kittens, the senior cats that they're rescuing and that they have at their shelter. But a lot of times what we need to be doing is looking at, okay, is this the food that I want to continue this kitten on? One of the biggest reasons that people give up pets, whether it's a cat or a dog, is because they can't afford them. They become a financial burden or stress on the household. Of course, if it's between you feeding your dog or your cat and feeding your family, of course, most of the time people are going to choose to feed their family. That's a given. So how do we keep the vet bills down? How do we keep your pet from becoming a financial burden? The first thing would be looking at getting pet insurance if you can. Pet insurance can help tremendously when there's an issue, where there's a problem, and keeping in mind it's very similar to pre-existing conditions will not be covered by pet insurance. So that's when they're really young. If you get them on pet insurance, any problem that comes up, usually you're only paying for 10% of that. Yes, there's deductibles that you have to hit, and that's where you can have a lower premium, higher deductible. So let's say your kitten eats a piece of string and has a foreign body obstruction. You're going to need $3,000 surgery, and that can be really hard to afford if you're not prepared for that. So that's where pet insurance is really good. So you can be paying a lower premium, monthly premium, and maybe you do have to hit like a $500 deductible before they'll pay 10%, but that's a lot better than like $4,000 or $5,000 worth of bills. So that's something I always recommend looking into. We have a blog post on picking pet insurance, comparing different companies on our website at thenaturalpetdoctor.com under blogs. So do a search for that, because I wrote that article comparing different companies, basing it also on holistic medicine too. So looking at the differences with these companies and whether or not they cover holistic health, alternative medicine. So take a look at that, because that can help tremendously. If your pet gets sick, If your kitten gets sick, they get diarrhea, they get vomiting. Guess what? Moki, our kitten, he came to me, his immune system was trashed. He had had coccidia, he had upper respiratory infections, he had been on like 3 rounds of antibiotics before I even got him. And he's prone to loose stool. And we've got him on supplements and things that we're going to mention in a second that really help boost his immune system and his gut health, because I don't want him developing things like inflammatory bowel disease or bowel cancer in the future. So I'm going to do everything I can right now to keep him healthy so that I don't have to go through cancer. I've had my 2 previous cats, both had aggressive gastrointestinal lymphoma, not a common cancer in cats. However, it was awful. And I don't want Moki. I already know he has leaky gut and he had been on a lot of antibiotics as a really young kitten. So I want to do everything I can possible. So that's why looking at food, let's talk about food for a little bit, about kittens. What do we feed them? If you can get your kitten used to eating a wet food diet or even a balanced raw food diet for kittens, this is going to be so much better for their overall health long-term than feeding kibble diets. They usually come on kibble. A lot of times my cats, the 3 cats that we've adopted recently, they were on kibble. They were also getting some like canned wet food. So with Moki, he has a great appetite. I should have named him Piglet. Like, he is so hungry all the time. And I'm sure a lot of pet parents out there can relate to that. So getting him used to eating different varieties of wet food, pate, your slices, like your different, they all come in different forms. So getting him used to those different varieties of wet food is key, because cats are really sensitive to textures and the taste of their food and how it feels, and they can get really, really picky. And we don't want a picky cat later on in life, because if they develop something like kidney disease or other issues and they don't want to eat, it's going to be really hard to get them to eat. So get them used to different variety of proteins too. Get them used to eating beef, get them used to eating chicken, turkey, rotate them so that they're getting all the different nutrients that come from those different protein sources also. Looking also at the ingredient label. This is something we talk about a lot because it's so important. We think we're feeding a good food, but there's little ingredients that are hidden in that ingredient list that potentially lead to inflammation. So carrageenan is a really common one. That's a known GI irritant. So it causes inflammation in the GI tract, and it can lead to leaky gut, lead to inflammation. Now your cat has allergies, can develop things like diabetes, because we have this chronic state of inflammation in the body. So this is essential. As a kitten, get them used to different types of foods, get them off of a kibble diet, and get them used to pate, different versions, get them used to eating potentially raw diets too, if they can. Now, what if you have a kitten that's sensitive? So like Moki, right? I wanted to put him like right onto raw. I was like, he couldn't. He would get diarrhea. And so that was unfortunately something that I couldn't transition to. And this is where we can use supplements to support the GI health. So with Moki, what we do is probiotics. So using a broad spectrum probiotic to improve the gut health, improve gut immunity. So a lot of these Bacillus species, especially, there's different types of bacterial strains and probiotics. So I always want to see different strains. So Bacillus, Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium are some of the more common ones. And then we have the yeast strains, also the good yeast. So the Bacillus tend to get into the colon, and they help the body produce short chain, or the colon to produce short chain fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory. And they're feeding the good bacteria. So we're supporting a healthy microbiome, which supports a healthy immune system. So this is essential for feeding them optimal diets. And some of the supplements that we're currently using for Moki too, I use a lot of standard process. So this is feline whole body support. This is something that he will stay on this his entire life. I love standard process. Most of their ingredients come from their organic farms, and it's whole food. And they also use like organ meats and we're utilizing all these nutrients that come from real foods to help support their immune health, their gut health, their whole body health. So whole body support is kind of like a multivitamin, but we're not overdoing it with the vitamins and minerals if they're on a balanced diet. So you don't have to worry about them overdosing on certain things. He loves this. So he eats a wet food diet right now. And I put these little tablets in, and they have honey in them, and like a little bit of honey, and cats love sweet stuff. So they're tiny little tablets. You can see them there. Most cats will actually eat this. So this is a great supplement. For kittens, this goes for puppies, kittens, getting them started on whole body support, and then standard process feline immune support. And this is going to support his immune health. Kittens are going through a lot. They're going through stress. They might be going through upper respiratory infections. They might have runny eyes. They might have conjunctivitis. Immune support is essential. Supporting gut health is important. And that's where for Moki, his gut health is weak. I know that. He had leaky gut. We're improving it. His stools are solid. He eats a variety of foods now, and he's not getting diarrhea, which is fantastic. And feline enteric support. So this is where this is going to specifically help support the GI lining. It has L-glutamine in it, which is the main food source of those intestinal cells. So it's supporting the GI lining to keep it strong. Support strong local immunity in the GI tract, and you will have less issues long-term with your cats. That's key, right? Less vet bills, right? Amen to that, because that's so important. I don't want to be spending a lot on vet bills, and I'm a vet, but I don't want to have to take him in and get all the dental cleanings every year, have all his teeth pulled, have gut issues, have skin issues, have diarrhea, have thyroid issues, kidney disease. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong as they get older. And if we can give them this solid foundation through nutrition, that will be key. If you want more, so we have a ton of content. Before we go on to our last step, head to thenaturalpetdoctor.com. We have free opt-ins. Top 5 tips on how to optimize your pet's health. You can get into our weekly newsletter for free tips. We also have a free Facebook group. So the Natural Pet Tribe, where I go live weekly every Wednesday, and I answer the community's questions. It's free. So take advantage of those. Definitely check them out. Head to thenaturalpetdoctor.com. Check out all of our blog posts. There's a lot of free content there. And check out how to raise your puppy and kitten holistically. We did an entire blog post on that with a video. So check that out. Our final tip for how to optimize your kitten's health. How do we get them off to the best start possible? Play. You probably didn't think I was going to say that, but playing with them is so important. Engaging with them, getting them utilizing their prey drive. Cats love chasing after things. If you have a cat, like all you have to do is put like a blanket on your feet while you're sitting on the sofa watching TV or a movie and move your toes, and your cat's like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, is there a mouse under there? So there's so many easy ways to play with our cats, play with our kittens. So we can get those fishing pole things. We have what we call the Bumble in our house, and Moki is obsessed with it. This is actually how I would get him to come to me that first week. Is he came with his Bumble toy, and it's a little bumblebee, and it's the cutest little thing, and it's attached to a pole, and it's on a string like a fishing line, and he loves it. And I throw it around and chase him with it, and he just loves this thing. He carries it in his mouth, and he'll like drag the pole and like put it under like the table, and it's like he's in his cave and he caught his mouse. So we need to stimulate that prey drive. We need to fulfill those needs. The best benefit of playing with our kittens is that we can keep them at a lean body weight. This is very, very important. We don't want our kittens to develop obesity and become overweight, because inflammation is released. Inflammatory cytokines are actually released from fat cells. fat is not just sitting there doing nothing. It's creating a whole host of issues. Cats are really sensitive too to developing insulin resistance and developing diabetes if they get overweight. So keeping our kittens nice and lean, keeping them at a healthy body weight through play and engaging with them is essential. It will reduce diseases in the future. So some of the ways that we can play with our cats, with our kittens, are putting a toy underneath a blanket. You know, especially if you have these fishing lines, fishing poles, put a toy under there and kind of move it around a little so it moves a little bit. You can also use treat puzzle toys. So putting little treats in there, using like freeze-dried liver is a great option, or even sometimes you can use like the dried salmon skins that are made for pets, using wild caught, of course, if you can. So we can utilize those. There's also ways to give them their food in little toys that stimulate like actual eating, like how they would eat in the wild. So it's stimulating that prey drive. So these are all great resources to help stimulate that brain, get them moving, get them playing, and keep them lean, because that is so important. We don't want a fat cat. Yeah, they're kind of funny looking and cute and Garfield and all the things, right? Not funny when they get sick. Not funny when you have to give them insulin injections twice a day. That is a game changer, life changer. And that's where a lot of pets end up getting euthanized because of the diseases that result, because we didn't maintain a healthy body weight. Now, keeping in mind, this is tied into nutrition. It always comes back to nutrition and what we're putting into the body. And that's where dry kibble can actually instigate insulin resistance. And that can promote obesity, your pet being overweight. So that's why it's so important when we have these kittens, getting them used to canned wet food diets is essential. So learning how to body condition score your cat. If your kitten's getting a little bit heavy, maybe they're going through a growth spurt, but if they're at least a year old and they're getting bigger, like sideways, not bigger tall wise, they're getting fat. So making sure that we're feeling them, and are they feeling squishy around their ribs? Are we still seeing they don't tend to have a lot of the times like that tummy tuck and that hourglass shape from the top down, but we need to be ensuring that they're not getting squishy, they're not gaining extra weight, because it will lead to a whole host of other problems down the road. Okay, to sum up everything that we talked about, for our top 3 tips for optimizing your kitten's health, getting them used to you, setting them on the right path to overall health and thriving so that your vet bills are lower, your cat is living a longer, more vibrant life, which is what we all want at the end of the day. So first, making sure they have a safe place. Cats are prone to stress, kittens especially, new environments. So this is good regardless of what life stage your cat is at. So making sure you have a safe, quiet room that has everything in it to fulfill every single need they have: litter tray, water, food, place to hide, scratching posts. Okay. Number 2, looking at what nutrition we're giving to these cats. Starting the kittens off with a variety of foods, getting them used to different textures, different flavors, different proteins, getting them, transitioning them off of a kibble diet. If you got a kitten from a rescue or a shelter and they've been on a kibble diet, transitioning them over a week, 2 weeks time. So slow transition, offering wet food alongside the kibble food, slowly reducing kibble and getting them used to a more optimal, biologically appropriate diet. That is essential. That will save you so much heartbreak and in the future if you can get your cat eating a balanced, biologically appropriate diet and getting them off of the kibble. Utilizing your supplements alongside, this is part of nutrition, filling in those gaps, getting your kittens on a probiotic that is broad spectrum, getting them on supplements like standard process, your whole body support, your feline immune support. If your kitten is prone to GI upset, enteric support is another great option. So using the things to fill in the gaps where we need to boost immune health, local gut health, so that your kitten isn't getting sick, isn't getting those upper respiratory infections, and is feeling their best. And number 3, making sure that we're playing with them, we're engaging with them, We're helping with their prey drive. We're stimulating those kittens to really engage and move and keep them at a lean body weight so that they stay healthy for their entire life. So thank you for being here live with me. I hope you found that helpful. Next week, we will be talking about vaccinations. It will be a brief overview. If you want to go deep into vaccines, then make sure you join our webinar that's on Wednesday, where we will be talking all about vaccine titers, what to give, what protocols I recommend for your dogs and your cats. So if you have a kitten and you're worried about vaccines for the life of that pet, make sure you join our vaccination webinar, because I will be giving you the guidelines and what you need to know to keep your dogs and your cats safe but healthy for their entire life.